The visual system. Let's start with a quick revision for the anatomy of the eye. Eye is mainly composed of 3 layers. External layer, which called the sclera, which is a hard connective tissue that gives the eye its round shape. Extension of the sclera into the front is the cornea, which is the translucent in order to allow the light to pass through it, and round in shape, which gives the eye its front convex shape that help in focus the light while entering these. Beneath the sclera, there is the choroid layer, which has the blood supply to the eye. Finally, in the inside there is retina, which contains the photoreceptors and the neurons needed for the ability to absorb the light and transform it to a neuronal signal. A process which will be described later. Anteriorly, as we said, we have the cornea. Behind the cornea is the iris, is a pigmented structure that regulate the amount of light entering the eyes by containing the only entrance for the light to the eye in the middle of it, which called the pupil. Around the pupil found the connective tissue of the iris, or stroma, which contains melanocytes that reflect or absorb light to give the iris its characteristic color. Also embedded in the stroma are the circumferentially organized sphincter muscle of the iris and the radially arranged dilator muscle. These muscles can increase or decrease the size of the pupil and hence controlling the amount of light entering the eye. The innervation of the iris sphincter, which closes the pupil, is parasympathetic. This pathway begins with preganglionic neurons whose cell bodies lie in the Edinger-Westphal nucleus in the brainstem and whose axons terminate in the ciliary ganglion. Axons of postganglionic ciliary ganglion neurons, in turn, end as neuromuscular synapses on the sphincter muscle and release acetylcholine. When activated, this pathway results in a reduction in pupil diameter, or miosis. The innervation of the iris dilator, which opens the pupil, is sympathetic. The pathway begins with preganglionic neurons whose cell bodies lie in the intermediolateral cell column of the spinal cord at upper thoracic levels and whose axons terminate in the superior cervical ganglion. Axons of postganglionic superior cervical ganglion neurons, in turn, end as neuromuscular synapses on the dilator muscle and release norepinephrine. When activated, this pathway results in an increase in pupil diameter, or mydriasis. Behind the iris found the lens, which is a clear elastic connective tissue. It is attached to a muscle, ciliary muscle, by means of suspensory ligaments, that help to focuses the light on the retina in order to get a clear sharp image in a process called lens accommodation. This is described in the following video.
Now, just how do light rays act to form a clear picture within the eye? First, let us realize that light rays reflected from any object radiate in all directions, and that as an object moves farther away from us, the angle between the rays that enter our eyes grows smaller and smaller. And finally, when the object has reached a distance of 15 feet or more, the rays entering our eyes are practically parallel. Now, nature has provided that parallel rays shall produce a sharp image upon the retina without any effort, and, as one may say, with the eye in a state of complete relaxation. But if a distant object approaches the eye, the angle between entering rays again grows larger. This increasing angle changes the direction of the light rays as they pass through the lens, so that the sharp image falls behind the retina. As a result, the image upon the retina tends to become blurred. This blurring causes a response or reflex within our brain, which brings about harmonious internal adjustments of all parts of the eye. This adjustment is called accommodation. Accommodation restores the sharply focused image with marvelous speed and accuracy. This is all the more remarkable because the distance between lens and retina is fixed, and the lens itself must change its shape. Now compare this with the focal adjustment of a camera. Here the lens remains unchanged, but the film itself is moved until it reaches a sharp focal image. It is also necessary that both our eyes be fixed upon the same point in order that we may see an object clearly. Thus, as an object approaches us from a distance, our eyeballs turn accordingly. This movement is called the convergence of visual axes. This action is shown here as the object approaches and recedes. Here, in addition, we see the lenses accommodating their optical shape under the combined influence of blurred image and eyeball movement. And now let us look at this highly enlarged view of the lens itself. It has a soft, yielding body and is as transparent as glass. But it also has a firm, ball-shaped central core or nucleus. It is contained within a thin, elastic membrane and is suspended all around by a spoke-like arrangement of delicate threads or ligaments. The lens itself lies between two liquids. These liquids can exert pressure. All liquids cannot be compressed. You may ask then, how is this soft, pliable body of the lens made to take on the different degrees of convexity necessary for accommodation? In order to explain this, let us again call attention to the important ciliary muscle, which we see here in the diagram. This muscle is shaped like a broad ring which can expand and contract. Whenever it does contract, it must press upon the non-elastic vitreous humor. This liquid is confined within the rigid capsule of the eyeball and must, therefore, exert pressure upon the lens. Now, the lens as a whole cannot give way against the equally non-elastic aqueous humor and its confining cornea. So the only part which can possibly yield to the pressure of the vitreous humor or body is the soft substance of the lens. This lens substance is thus molded into an even curve against the rigid ball-shaped core, thus forming this highly convex bulge which science has called lenticonus. So whenever the image upon the retina becomes blurred, the brain automatically causes the ciliary muscle to contract or to relax until the lens has attained just the right shape to restore a sharply defined image upon the retina.